Welcome to the Seven Figure Builder Show. My name is Julie Baranek, founder of Seven Figure Builder, where we help high achieving CEOs connect with their dream clients to scale to seven figures and beyond. And I'm here today with my friend Lauren Goldstein. Hey, Lauren.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I am so excited about our conversation today.
Me too. Me too.
So, first and foremost, where in the world are you?
I am in very hot Austin, Texas.
No kidding. It is definitely warm there this time of year.
It's what I joke that we have summer and then we have second summer. So while the rest of the world is maybe dreaming of pumpkin spice lattes and fall foliage, we're still in the hundreds. So it's been
Yeah,
a wild, wild summer.
I believe it. And I'm in Maryland and we just got a heat wave over here. So I can only imagine where you're at. So, yes, it's a little warm, I'm sure.
Mhm.
So, for people that haven't had the pleasure to meet you yet, can you tell us just a little bit about what you do with your business?
Sure. So many years ago, my clients fondly nicknamed me the Biz Doctor because my specialty is helping you diagnose what's keeping you stuck in the trenches of your business and preventing you from being the owner instead of the operator. So getting out of the management minutia so that you can actually, I don't know, have a sigh of relief or have a vacation or a life outside your business instead of having a job that's disguised like a business.
That's amazing. And yeah, it's critical. So, a silly question, but like, who does this apply to? Is this just the big business people, or is this from day one, or what would you recommend for people?
So, most of the clients that I work with are seven-figure businesses who have a team because I focus on helping you get out of the trenches with the right team and operations. But fear not, if you're new and, building your business, a lot of what I talk about will help you do it right and set it up the right way. And there's really no perfect time to do this. What's the quote? The best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, the second best is today.
Right.
So while most of my clients are the seven-figure businesses that have established business and product and profitability and team, really you can start implementing a lot of these things from day one or just have it in the back of your mind and be way ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And to that point, so is this a once and done thing, or is this a lifetime thing?
Oh boy. I don't believe in one and done anything in your business because your business is a living, breathing thing. And as my friend Cameron says, if the rate of change outside your business is greater than the rate of change in your business, then you are out of business.
Hmm.
So there are certain things that you might be able to dress maybe once a year or less frequently. But I don't think there's anything in your business that you can just say, yep, I'm done. I don't ever have to look back at that.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And for people listening, that doesn't mean that you need to be in a constant state of chaos or change in your business to actually, make progress in this area, right? Like, I'm a total systems automation geek, but if you don't have a focus on what it is that you focus on, like
Mhm.
from day one or continually, it can very quickly get out of hand and out of balance as to where you actually want to go, right?
Yep, exactly. It's just the way that I think about it, the best analogy I give for my clients is a plane on autopilot. So a lot of times, and I actually didn't know this until I investigated it, but I thought a plane, like if you were flying from, let's say, Dallas to Paris, you just set it and forget it. You just plug in Paris and that's it. But that's not actually how it works. The whole entire way, it's making tiny microscopic adjustments in altitude, in direction, so that you arrive in Paris and you don't arrive in Budapest. And so, to your point, I'm not saying every single day, like adjust and readjust. It's more about checking the pulse and direction of your business to make sure that what's happening every day, those little things, which we all know become the big things over time, are keeping you going in the right direction.
Yeah. And where do you recommend people to start for someone to say, you know what, I feel like I'm working, in my business every single day. I can't even breathe. Like, what would you recommend to them?
You are great with the loaded questions. So, obviously, I don't know enough about their business to make a fully like, you should do this. But I would say if you're feeling overwhelmed and burned out, this is going to sound so counterintuitive, but I want you to take a day off and like actually fully unplug from your business because most often when I see people who are like really in the trenches, feeling overwhelmed, feeling burned out, it's because you're too close to it. And so sometimes just taking that breath, taking that step back, which I know probably just elicited massive fear in all of you listening about like, I'm so busy, I can't even take a day off. But trust me, you need the day off because your brain needs to recalibrate, your business needs to recalibrate. And so taking that time and taking inventory of what you feel is working and what's not working and what needs to change will make a huge difference. And, this is one of the homework, I'm using air quotes, that I give my clients of take some time off, really think through what are you doing every day? What are the things, taking that inventory of the tasks you're doing, the projects that you're doing, what's lighting you up, what's draining you, what are you afraid to delegate? What do you need to delegate? And really get clear on where your anchors are. And then from there, from a clear space where you're not so overwhelmed and burned out, then you can make a plan of action.
Yeah. And what would you say for people that are just up to their eyeballs and, can't even see past where they are today? But what does that ultimate vision, or what could that vision look like, right? That you could take a day off, you could take more than that. Like, what are people capable of and still not have their business die, right?
Yeah. So I think people are capable of more than they realize. The challenge is that so many of us started our business because we saw a problem and knew we could solve it. And so we just went into the doing. We got really stuck in the delivery or the service. So a lot of business owners I work with are service-based business owners. So they're actually doing the service. And when that happens, then all of a sudden we get stuck in this like day to day, I have to keep doing all the things and delivering for my clients. And so that unfortunately keeps you stuck in more of a job than a business, because when you downshift a little bit and say, what are my superpowers? What are my unique abilities that only I can do, that I bring to this business? And where can I outsource everything else? Then you really get stuck and overwhelmed in just all the things versus taking a moment and saying, okay, I've accidentally created these golden handcuffs for myself. What do I want? Because I think that anything is possible as long as you know what your vision is. And that vision is not just, waking up, doing the work, going to bed, and just doing it over and over and over again. We've all got bigger goals, whether it's having a family and spending more time with them, or taking a vacation, or one of the things that I'm very committed to doing is going on a tour to Christmas markets in the winter in Europe, right? And so when we, again, take a step back, you'll hear a theme where I'm very much trying to shift everyone from being in reaction, having a reactive business, to a proactive business. When you take a step back and you shift and say, well, what is it that I actually want? What is my business providing for me and my clients? Then you're able to have the life that you want and build your business around your life instead of your life around your business.
Yeah, 100%. And what do you find that business owners are missing from, that initial assessment to get to that vision? Like, is it people, processes? Like, what is the gap there?
So the gap generally tends to be that they haven't thought about it. So the figure something like 80% of business owners have never considered what their life is going to be like after their business. So a lot of the work that I do is either to get you out of the trenches so that you can enjoy your life, or create, or they kind of go hand in hand, a business that runs by itself so that you can either be an owner that's taking dividends and disbursements from the business, or sell it, or pass it on to someone else, etc. And so I think the gap is that they've just never thought about what they really want and put together that vision of how they want to feel in the business, how they want the business to run. One of my favorite questions is, if you could have it all your way, what would your business look like, feel like, and create for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And to what you mentioned, like, how does that play into if they want to sell their business sometimes? Like, what do people need to put into place to be able to get to the point to transition it over?
Oh, that is a very loaded question. There's a lot of due diligence that goes into selling a business, but at the very least, your business needs to have predictable profitability and revenue. It needs to have a proven product, proven processes, and a team that supports you so that if you took a 2 weeks off, and actually my friend just wrote this book, it's wonderful, 2 week vacation test. It's actually a test that before he published this book, I would give this as homework to some of my clients and to say, I need you to take 2 weeks off from your business. Again, I'm sorry, that probably should have come with a trigger warning. It's not sometimes they negotiate and they're like, I will give you a week. I'm like, okay, great. Where they're not checking in with their business, they're not doing any of the things, because it's really important to see what breaks. Because a lot of times as business owner, we're sitting there duct taping things, picking up pieces. And if you're always there, then you won't actually have the clarity on what it's going to take to get your business to be autonomous, to run without you. But here's the caveat. A lot of business owners don't do that because we've wrapped our identity around our business. And so a lot of the work that I do in leadership and mindset, whether I'm in fractional COO mode or business advisor, is what happens when you stop having to be in the business all the time. And now you're having an existential crisis of who am I? Because that, whether it's conscious or subconscious, is going to stop you from having a business that's truly sustainable and scalable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about when you're mentioning the duct tape, in my corporate career, managing teams of IT, all around the world, I used to tell them, like, try to break it. Whatever we're building, we want to break it. We don't want our clients to break it, so that you can fix the issues before it ever gets to the client. But it's important to run things through a stress test, whether it's, software that you're developing or business processes, especially. You've got to put them through the stress test and then be intentional and assess it, not just a firefighter putting out fires constantly, because then you can never see to get ahead in the process because you're constantly putting out fires and putting on new layers of duct tape. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So if you listen to my podcast, I love analogies. There's a great analogy that I use with my clients about building a house. In theory, we don't build a house with all the electrical and plumbing and everything. And we never test it until we've like fully outfitted the whole thing. Like pictures are hung, furniture's in there, rugs are down. And then we're like, oh shoot, we should probably test the plumbing and the electrical.
Right.
We don't do that. We do it when the walls are open and we go and we look for leaks. We look and see like, oh, there's a short there. But so often, one of the mistakes that I see early business owners do is they start building all these processes and adding all these layers of paint and furniture and rugs and all of that without actually making sure that they have a proven product and a proven process that they can agilely adjust. So as your business grows, and especially when it scales, it should get more simple, not more complicated. So you want to constantly be checking in and seeing where the friction points are, what's working, what's not.
Yeah. And that's critical, what you just mentioned, that it should get more simple, not more complicated. Because generally, as business grows and continues, you're adding on new revenue streams or trying different things. And it's like you've got so much legacy crap that you never actually get rid of, that it just becomes more and more and more. And if you're not strategic and intentional about it, you can have a spaghetti mess on your hands before it's too long, right?
Absolutely. I call those business barnacles. And I can tell you, whether I'm coming in as fractional COO to a $5 million business or a $60 million business, everybody's got barnacles. And if you don't address them, they're going to leak people, process, profit. You gotta get rid of them.
Yeah. And what are the biggest myths that you need to bust that are out there that people are thinking?
So my favorite one to bust is that more revenue will fix everything. I've seen more businesses blow up spectacularly by just adding more sales to the top line, because the reality is that there are certain things that revenue will fix. I'm not denying that. However, revenue is a lagging metric, and I think most people don't remember that. And so if you're just adding revenue, adding revenue, adding revenue, and you're not actually looking at the foundation, back to another house analogy, the foundation of your business, the processes that fulfill on that promise that you made to the customer who said yes, then you're just going to start breaking things faster, which, if you want to move fast and break things, really like absolutely go do that. I do not recommend it. I recommend, really being thoughtful and making sure you have the flow to solve those things. But if you're seeing a drop in revenue or a drop in productivity or profitability, or you're having team churn, actually asking yourself deeper questions to find the root cause will go exponentially farther than just trying to add revenue.
Yeah.
So that's my first myth. I have more if you
Go
would
for
like.
it. Yep.
Okay. The second, which I kind of alluded to a few moments ago, is you are not your business. So when we start our business, when we're building our business, it is our baby. When somebody asks, like, who are you? Our first inclination is to say, I'm a business owner, or I own this business, or I'm a founder, etc. But that's not who you are. That's what you do. And I see a lot of business owners get stuck in certain levels of revenue because they want their business to be them subconsciously, but you're not your business. And for your business to really thrive, the faster you're able to get it to not be reliant on your time, the more successful you'll be, which is hard for those of us that have, egos and confidence and, all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And time, to that point, is the biggest limiting factor. Like, if your entire business is hinging off of your 24 hours per day, you're only ever going to grow so far. That's just fact. So more it can be based in a scalable, sustainable model that you can have other people help you. And, I'm a huge believer of, A, surrounding myself with people that are smarter than I am, and B, bringing in people that complement my weaknesses so that I can focus on my zone of genius and do the things that I'm really good at. The more you can bust through those levels of income and really continue to grow and reach whatever goals you want to hit.
Exactly. Exactly. And then the third myth that I will give you is a little bit twofold. The first is unicorns do not exist. So if you happen to have a lean team, please listen in very close. Do not, under any circumstances, go and hire a full-time person that does quote unquote everything. It will end spectacularly terrible, and just you're going to waste a lot of time and money. You are much better off to hire a part-time player than a full-time worker bee. And because a lot of times when you're building your business, you just want to hand off tasks. That's the other part of this coin. That is going to unfortunately probably result in you hiring a worker bee because you just want them to do things. But in reality, if time is your biggest limitation, you need a player who's going to be able to take the projects that you want to have happen and execute them in an autonomous way. And the only way that you do that is by getting clear on what your successes are. Like, what are your master talents that only you can do, and finding your weaknesses, and then hiring people who have the strength in your weaknesses to be complementary. That's the way you build the most effective lean team. And they don't have to be full-time. They can be part-time. Heck, they could even be contractors. You just have to know who is going to help you get farther fastest and hire those people, and then add accordingly after that.
That's awesome. And that requires a lot of, say, introspection and honesty with ourselves to be able to, like you mentioned, a lot of times our identity is wrapped up in our business. So we don't want to say that we have weaknesses, right? Or that we're used to just being able to do everything. And the reality is you don't have to, right? But the more you can be honest with yourself, the better off you can be to have somebody that complements you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's why people hire me. I mean, this was one of the reasons why people hire me, but to be that objective third party to tell you the hard truths. But you said something that I want to talk about really quick. You said you can do everything. So sure, in theory, you could do everything. You could continue to be that chief everything officer, but no one can do everything. And it might be that you've learned skills because there was a necessity when you were starting and it was just you. But if you're continuing to do things that are really not your zone of genius, this is what's going to happen. They're going to get deprioritized, skipped. They're going to drain you. They're going to cost you a lot of money because you're not doing the things that are actually going to generate that profitability and happiness and impact and all the things. So while in theory, you could go around and do all the things, a really fun exercise you can do is you can figure out how much you want to make a year, how many hours you want to work, go figure out your hourly rate, and then go track how much money you're costing yourself by doing those things that are not actually moving your business forward.
I love that. I was actually picturing the exact same thing. And when you think about it, the number of hours that you're spending to do those tasks that could potentially be handed off to somebody else at your hourly rate, which is then preventing you from bringing in more revenue because you're not being the visionary. You're like, cutting off your nose to spite your face because you're doing those tasks over and over where they could easily be handed off to somebody else. Granted, there's a process in place and you need the help from somebody like yourself, of course, to help do that effectively, but you can be that much more profitable if you're actually just not doing everything yourself.
Yeah. And I know you might be saying, if you're listening to this, you might be saying, "Oh, but they're not going to do it like me, or they're not going to care as much as I do, or what if they do it wrong?" Great. They're not supposed to do it like you. That's why you're hiring them. Because the thing that I think stops a lot of people when it comes to delegation, or why you're an ineffective delegator, is because you're not clear on the definition of done. So when I'm working with my team, I'm like, this is what I expect the end result to look like. I honestly don't care how you get there. It has to be on brand. It has to be, all the things of that definition of done. But how they get there is up to them. And when you allow your team to get into their creative process, whatever that is, they're more effective, they're more vested, they're more excited. The clients feel all of the excitement. Like, it really is empowering for them and a relief for you because you don't have to micromanage them when you have the right people. Now, if you feel like you have to micromanage someone, that's either a clue that you don't trust them, you haven't actually told them what they need to do, or they are not capable, or it's just not the right person. And that's okay. But you have to be clear on who you need and what they're doing to move your business forward. And then it's magic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you say is some low-hanging fruit that people who feel like she's speaking to me, this is absolutely where I am in my business, like what are some things that people can typically address pretty quickly to feel like they're making progress and potentially freeing up their time?
I think probably the first low-hanging fruit would be to do an activity audit. So take a week, audit all the things you're doing. I will be the first to admit this sucks. You're going to hate it, but it will. I don't know, when you go to the PT or something and you're working through something, you're like, oh, it's really painful. But then you're like, oh, I feel so much better. This will be like that. Because what I want you to do is write down everything you're doing, how it's making you feel, how it impacts the business, et cetera, et cetera. And then go through and find the things that are your unique zone of genius, the things that you're really excited about. And then everything that's not, see if it's something you still need to do, or if you can delegate it, if you can defer it, or you can delete it. Because I think that the lowest hanging fruit is you just don't have clarity on what's actually moving the needle. And doing all the things is never going to work. And so if you can take that moment, again, slow down, downshift, figure out what you're doing, then most of the stuff that you have on your plate, I think you'll see you can either delete it, like you're doing a lot of busy work, or you can delegate it. And if you don't have somebody on your team to delegate to, fear not. What this exercise is going to do is it's going to help you categorize things that you would like to delegate so that you can more effectively hire somebody, because it's not like a really big mistake that I see entrepreneurs make is they make a list of all these tasks that they want someone to do to take off their plate, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. But when you do that, you're always going to be stuck doing two people's jobs. The job you need to do, but also the job of thinking of things for that person to do. So instead, I want you to think about, what are the activities and things that are making a difference in my business that I need to get off my plate? And what does that look like in terms of a project? And that way you can hire somebody that's unique skill set are those things. So for example, let's say you're really good at sales, but you're not really good at details. So then you can find that all the things that maybe you don't enjoy doing are the client contracts, the follow-ups, the emails, the things like that. So then you might hire somebody that's a client relationship manager. And so after they say yes to you, then all of a sudden, Susie handles all of that. And so the project there is a happy customer. And so she's handling all of those things. Or maybe it's a project manager, many different titles. And so that's what I would say is probably the lowest hanging fruit, is just to get really, really, really clear on what your role is in the business. And if you need more support with that, we actually have a great resource called a scorecard, which helps you unlock and uncover clarity in the roles. We ask, what's the mission of the role? What's your one thing? How does this fit into the business? What problems are it solving? What accountabilities, which I know sounds like a lot of things, but these are all things that anybody that's on your team, including yourself, should know. And so by having the clarity on what your role is, then you can start really building the team around you. And then the other low-hanging fruit, which is going to sound funny, because hiring somebody in your business can take a while. You want to make sure you have enough time to make the right hire instead of reactively hiring. So if you don't have somebody in your business and you are short for time and feeling overwhelmed, I would look at, in your personal life, what are the things that you can outsource? So something like getting a house cleaner, life-changing. Like, go do it. If you, want to have somebody prep a few meals for you a week, go do it. Because when you are able to have just even a few hours back from things, whether it's personally or professionally, that's when you can start making big moves in your business.
Those are awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. And I was just thinking, like, so many of us, we're so busy, right? And I think we oftentimes mistakenly can take our value in our busyness instead of being productive and like actually accomplishing things. So what would you tell people of how not to just refill that free time up with more busyness? Do you know what I mean?
I do. That could be a whole podcast episode.
All right, we'll save that for next episode. How about
we'll
that?
We'll save that for next episode. But I think, so as women entrepreneurs, I think we have been conditioned, I'm going to speak for myself. I'm what do they call this? Elder millennials. So I'm an 80s baby. So I was blessed to grow up analog, but I came of age in digital. But what that also meant is that we were conditioned to like do all the things. And so what that translated to for me is the more busy I got, the more value I had. And it's taken me a lot of years to relish in the silence and the white space, because when you attach your value to how many hours you're working, you're very much in the masculine, which I know this might be a little woo, but we're going there, in the masculine dynamic of like pushing and, just going, versus the feminine, which is very much about receiving and flow. And if you don't have the white space, then you're not able to respond and flow where you're needed. And so it's going to feel really uncomfortable. And so you're going to have to be committed to being uncomfortable for probably about 60 days with white space in your calendar. And I remember I had a client a few years ago, amazing business owner in London, and she was telling me about all the things. I'm feeling so overwhelmed, like it's impacting my kids, it's impacting my husband, it's impacting my business. And I said, great. We're going to do something that's probably going to trigger you. And she said, oh God, I'm not ready. I said, great. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to look at your calendar next week and you're going to cancel every single meeting you have. And she's like, like I can see, she's like, I can't do that. My business is going to crumble. And I said, okay, let's be honest. Is your business really going to crumble? And she said, no, probably not. And I said, can you afford to take a week off? And she said, probably yes. So anyway, she took a week off. She came back and she's like, that was the best week of my life. I had so many ideas on how to help my clients. I thought of a new product offering. My husband and I had like great SEX. I don't know if you're like a show that's
Totally, go for it.
listen or not. And she's like, I feel rejuvenated. And it just goes to show that when we're not embodied in our natural inclination energetically, then it creates this imbalance that then permeates everything we do. And I will tell you, just get a little vulnerable with my entrepreneurial journey. It was 2018 and we were crushing it, having record-breaking months, like the dream, right? And behind the scenes, I was crying every single night. We were dropping balls. I was like, I don't know how I can hold this thing together. I said yes to too many things. The team's stressed. I'm stressed. Like it was terrible. And I remember one Friday afternoon, we had dropped a ball and I just lost it at my desk and I was just sitting there sobbing. And I said, okay, obviously no more work is getting done on this Friday. So I just closed my laptop. I turned off my cell phone. I turned off every piece of technology that I own. I went and like ate dinner, went to sleep. And that next Saturday, I did not talk to another single human being. I didn't look at a text, notification, email, nothing. And it was like I went from being Eeyore and potentially trying to burn down my entire business because I was overwhelmed and upset and just too much to like, oh, okay, I just had no battery life and there was nothing left for me to give. And so long story long, when you are constantly in the busy and you don't have any energy to give because you're running on empty, you're just going to continue to be in that spiral. And you might not see it today. It might be 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, a year from now, but eventually that revenue, that lagging metric will start showing its face because you're not able to give to your business. So if you look at your calendar and you have no white space to do whatever, whenever, and it doesn't have to be a lot, it could be 30 minutes here, an hour there. Like I'm not saying go take a week off. I mean, you can. Actually, I do recommend that. But find the white space because that's where you're going to have the idea come to you to solve the problem that's been keeping you up at night about your business. Did that answer your question? I know it was a very
It absolutely did. And yeah, I agree. I'm the same generation as well. And I think so often, even when we do try to take that white space and that calm, we end up filling it with our phones, like we're scrolling social media and like that constant feedback on top of just the tasks. It's like, it's overwhelming. And I know personally, I feel the same thing, but I find my most productive creative times are when either I'm driving and I don't have a choice but to just like zone out and focus on something. Or my other one is when I'm mowing the lawn, funny enough.
Oh,
Like,
I love that.
I really enjoy, oddly enough, mowing the lawn because all I have to worry about is keeping my line straight. So productive of a creative time for me because I literally like take a problem, and I really should just zone out more in general, but I take a problem and I just think, and all I think about is, my lines back and forth and whatever it is I can let my brain trail off to. But between, my husband and I travel a ton and we take a lot of road trips and we tow vehicles and like I'll tow the boat and, so there's a lot of things we do on the road. And yeah, I have redone entire marketing plans and like gutted businesses and like through the years done ridiculous things just in that white space and driving when you give yourself that ability to just be creative and, think about things from a different angle and you just get refreshed. So yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah. For me, it's walking around the lake. I live by a lake. So I do, when it's not a gajillion degrees,
Yep.
I like to go for a walk or shower time. Showers like get a lot of my great ideas because, it's like meditation. And I think that so often if you can just take a moment to maybe just shift the habit, because I think a lot of those things are habits, like checking your phone first thing in the morning, which I'm guilty of, watching TV while you eat. If you can just shift and replace. So instead of like watching Suits marathon while you eat, maybe put on a podcast or personal development, something or other, a documentary, then you can make a lot of difference.
For sure. So to that point, you've accomplished a ton in your career with your business, professionally, all of that. But how do you define success? What does that look like for you?
Oh boy. Yeah, I've been doing this for 12 years, and I think it's taken me a really long time to disentangle success from the dollar amount in my bank account. And so for me now, success is two parts. Have I done something this week that has scared me or challenged me? Or, it could be something as simple as I brushed my teeth with my left hand. Some weeks it's just, there's a low bar.
Yeah.
Other weeks, I recently learned how to play pickleball, and boy, let me tell you, if you want to feel successful, or rather not successful for a little while, try a new sport. But to that point, success now is, am I getting better today than I was yesterday? Am I responding differently to a situation today than I would have yesterday? And am I continuing to grow? Because I think one of the catch-22s of entrepreneurship and business is like, we want it to be predictable and we want it to be easy and fun. And that's obviously my goal, is to help you create a business that can run without you, that's fun and easy and profitable. While your business should be boring, that doesn't mean it's time for you to be complacent. So if your business is running like a well-oiled machine, that just means it's time for something else to help you grow and shift and all of that. Because I don't believe your business, just like your relationship, should be your end all be all. Your business is a vehicle to help you create the life that you want and impact customers in a powerful way. But it should not be your everything, just like your husband or wife or kids or whatever should not be your everything.
Definitely. No, I love that. And it's important to always be constantly improving, both business, personal, professional, like family, all of that. Just it all takes work, right?
It does.
And if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
Yes. So if I had my intention, or the whole world's attention, for 5 minutes, I would say these two things. Don't compare your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. And then my big soapbox, which is the other side of this coin, is forget the B's, go focus on the A's. So what that means is our school system has created this belief that we need to get A's in everything. So when you're in school, if you got a B, or God forbid a C or D or whatever, it wasn't, you know what, let's forget about that subject. Let's focus on, you're really great at, psychology. Go study that. You're really great at chemistry. Go study that. It was, no, now you need to go figure out how to get your grade up. And I think that's done a disservice to a lot of people in creating, sure, well-rounded, but passionate people who have forgotten how to run after the things that really light them up because they want to be perceived as good at everything. To go back to what I said, 10 minutes ago, you cannot be good at everything. So figure out what really lights you up. What subjects of life are you going to get an A in, and run after those with reckless abandon, and leave everything else to somebody else that loves doing those things. To illustrate this, I'll give you a great example. So I do operations. I love operations, but what I don't love is accounting and bookkeeping. And in the early years, when I was doing my own accounting and bookkeeping as chief everything officer, it would get done at the 11th hour right before taxes were due because I hated it, right? But when I hired people that loved dotting T's, crossing I's, closing circles, finding that penny, they were so happy and I was so happy. And it goes to show that I've never found a situation of somebody who didn't like doing something that somebody else didn't love doing that thing. So don't be afraid that there's not somebody out there to do the thing that you don't like doing. I guarantee there is.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's always somebody out there that loves the thing that you hate. And I'm just as guilty with that. I end up procrastinating when I'm trying to do the things that I'm not passionate about, where it's easier to have someone else do it.
Yeah, because subconsciously your brain knows that you're not good at it. And so it's not going to put you in a situation where it thinks that you're going to die because you're not good at something. And that's really what our brain is designed to do. My degree is in cognitive neuroscience, which could be a whole nother podcast, but your brain's designed to keep you safe. And so if you find resistance with things, it could be that you're scared because it's unfamiliar, but it also could be your brain's way of saying you're not the best person to do this.
For sure. No, I absolutely love that. And for people that are listening that want to connect with you, how can they best support you in your work? Where can they find you online?
Yeah. So the first place I would say, since I'm already in your ear at this moment, is to head over to the Biz Doctor podcast. You can hear me talk a lot more about team and leadership and operations and mindset. And I have special guests that come in and talk about finances and sales and marketing and all the things. It is a treasure trove of information to help you run your business the right way. If you want to get the scorecard, you can head on over to goldenkeypartnership.com/scorecard and download that, and also find a ton of other information and resources at goldenkeypartnership.com.
Awesome. And we'll have all the links down below to come connect with Lauren and get that scorecard, and definitely check out the podcast because it is pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lauren, for being on today. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, and I can't wait to hear what everybody thinks.
Absolutely. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.